What's going on, guys? In this video, I wanted to compare the Ready Player One movie to the Ready Player One book, which one I liked more, some key differences, stuff like that. So I recently read Ready Player One within the last 2 weeks, and it was by far one of the best books that I've ever read in my life. I gave it a 5 out of 5. You can check out my review. I'll put it in the description below. And I wanted to rewatch the movie to point out some, key differences, because usually movies change books around and whether I like those differences, which one I thought was better. And like I mentioned in my review, this is a rare situation where I actually saw the movie first a few years ago and didn't even know it was a book in the first place. But I didn't really remember a lot about the movie going into the book so that it would, contaminate my ideas of the book and say, that's different than the movie. But even if I, to be honest, even if I did see the movie and then read the book the next day, I still would have thought the book was better. So I'm going to say that right off the back. I thought the book was better than the movie, as most book lovers would probably agree. But that doesn't mean that I hated the movie or even hated the changes that they made. And a lot of the changes that they made, I think do make sense. And I'll get into that. So I just want to say right off the bat that if you haven't read the book, I would stop the video right now because I have to go into spoilers of the book in order to compare the book and the movie because there were some pretty major differences between the two. So let's start off with the plot. The plot is still the same, where James Halliday has died. The whole Oasis virtual reality game, Wade Watts, is a teenager who lives most of his life in the Oasis as an avatar, as much of the world does. And, James Halliday dies and he leaves an Easter egg behind. And most of the Oasis players have to find that Easter egg with clues that he's left behind in order to gain control of the Oasis and all his entire fortune. Now, one slight difference between the book and the movie in this aspect is that James Halliday was portrayed as a trillionaire. I think the world's first trillionaire. Trillionaire was never mentioned in the book, although I do like that. I do remember that from seeing the movie the first time, and I actually just watched it last night, so it's still pretty fresh in my mind. I do like the idea of having someone as the world's first trillionaire, whereas compared to the book, his worth was $240 billion, whereas his actual worth, I think in the movie was he claims as $500 million, but if you've got assets and your company's worth $1 trillion, I guess you're considered a trillionaire. I don't know how it all works, but they portray him as a trillionaire in the movie, but that the Gunters are fighting for half $1 trillion, so $500 billion worth of money. So the plot is still the same. The CGI was amazing in this movie. It was directed by Steven Spielberg, and the CGI, I have no complaints about it. It couldn't be better. I didn't really have an image in my head of when I was reading of how all these characters looked. I didn't really have any expectations, but I have no complaints on how the characters looked. The only difference between some of the characters, like one of the there are a few extra ones, and a few names were changed around. So instead of Daito and Shoto, it's Daito and Sho. And in the movie, Sho does not die. In the book, Shoto dies at the end, or towards the end. And he's portrayed as an 11-year-old kid, which was not that way in the book. I didn't really mind that. That didn't bother me that much, that they kind of changed those around and kept those characters, alive or dead or flip-flopped them. One of the extra characters was IROC, who was voiced by TJ Miller. And he was kind of a bit of a comic relief. He's portrayed as this really secretive, villain. He's working for IOI and Nolan Sorrento as a guy who provides them with secret items, that shield that goes over Castle Anorak at the end. And I didn't mind this because not only was he gave me a few laughs throughout the movie, but it kind of filled in a somewhat missing link within the book of how IOI was able to obtain that shield that they put around the castle at the end of the movie. In the book and the movie. So in the movie, it was given to them by IROC. So it's just like the movie was able to fill in a little bit of extra details that necessarily wouldn't have changed the plot all that much in the book, but it's just, how did they get that item? Well, a movie can show them, because most of the book is told through Wade Watts' perspective. So a movie is able to switch perspectives on characters a little bit easier than the book did. So I didn't mind that at all. The biggest changes from the book to the movie were the first two challenges. They completely changed them, and I'm not upset. And the reason why I'm not upset is because with a book, you have more time to lay out a story. There's really no limit to how long a book can be, I suppose. The movie, you've got a time restriction, and at the end of the day, you have to capture the audience's attention. And I feel like if they would have kept Ernest Cline's first two challenges of the book in the movie, they probably could have made it interesting, but it's not really movie material. So the first challenge was Wade Watts going into that cave, that Dungeons and Dragons. He figured out the clue from the Dungeons and Dragons book cover, and he had to go into the cave to fight that, I forget his name, but he had to play him in a game of Joust, a video game of Joust. And it was basically just on a, like an arcade style game. In a book, that works fine. But if you're watching a movie and you're sitting there just watching somebody play a video game, I don't know how interesting you can really make that. The second challenge, that was the first challenge in the book. The first challenge in the movie, they replaced it with a race, which in my opinion was cinematic and fantastic. It was a fun ride. And Steven Spielberg even threw in a few Easter eggs of his own. Jurassic Park, one of the T-Rexes, because he directed Jurassic Park. So one of the T-Rexes is like a roadblock on the race. And so I was fine with that. That was really cool. So a race, leading to the end where once you reach the finish line, then you would get the first key, the copper key. And, so it, not only did they have to do that, but they also had to make up their own clues and change the it's not just like, all right, win the race and you win this race and then you get the key. They also had to make up their own clues the same way that Halliday did in the book. And I'm glad that they had Ernest Cline on staff, I guess, to help with the dialogue, because it was, approved by him. So he helped in assisting with those clues. And the race, is very, science fiction-y. It's just got giant loops and you're racing around cities. It's not just like a regular car race. It's just, a bunch of different vehicles flying around a city with, monsters chasing after you and, people shooting each other and, action movie type stuff. So that was really cool. And I didn't hate that change, because watching an exciting race versus just watching somebody play a video game on an arcade thing, I don't hate that change. I'm fine with that. Second challenge being Wade quoting an entire movie from memory versus The Shining, where they go into the Shining movie. So they still kind of kept it the same. It was kind of like still like movie themed, but I didn't hate it, because quoting a movie line by line is not that interesting for watching someone do it. Like in a book, that would be totally fine. Who cares? And I actually really enjoyed that part of the book. But for the movie, they did this thing where James Halliday was, he's like a really shy guy. He's really kind of nerdy, and he's really scared to, go on a date. And one of his biggest challenges in life was to be able to kiss a girl. So they kind of played on that. What was his biggest challenge in life? And, they had to figure out the clue that way. But it felt a little strange to me, the whole Shining thing with the zombies and I don't know, it felt a little out of place to me. And I don't really know why, but that second challenge, I'm okay that they changed it, but there was a part of me that wanted it just to be a little bit different. The third challenge was still the same, where they attack Castle Anorak at the end, and they have to not just play Adventure, the game Adventure on the old like Atari systems, but not just play it, but just find the Easter egg within the game. They made that interesting because they shortened it a bit, and there was some narration over it. That was fine. But the end battle in the movie was, I have no complaints about it. Pretty much what I expected from the book. Really exciting, action-packed. A lot of the characters that they had in the book were the same as the movie, like Mechagodzilla, where Nolan Sorrento had his Mechagodzilla suit that he fought everybody in. Couple differences though between that last sequence there. In the book, Wade Watts is the one that voluntarily goes into the IOI loyalty center and basically tries to infiltrate them from the inside. Willingly goes in there so that he can hack their system and shut down the shield at the proper moment. Where in the movie, it's actually done by Artemis, unwillingly by her. She gets captured by IOI and gets put into the loyalty center as kind of like a prisoner against her will. And she's the one that ends up shutting down the shield for everybody. So that was a change in the movie that, outcome was still the same. It was done by a different character, but, Wade Watts isn't completely the hero throughout the entire movie. So they kind of took a few of those roles and put them on other characters, which I was fine with. And that brings me to another point, is that they meet Artemis, or Wade Watts meets Artemis a lot earlier in the movie than he does in the book. In the book, he doesn't meet her until the last, 5 pages or something like that. And that's another change that I didn't mind so much. I didn't mind that he met her earlier on, but what felt strange that wasn't in the book was that they were part of some kind of rebellion, like in the real life or in real life. And you can kind of tell that they were already in some kind of rebellion in real life. Didn't really feel like it needed to be like spelled out like that. Of course, that also opens up the way for Artemis to get captured and brought into the IOI center, because they infiltrated their whole like setup and whatever. That wasn't really a thing in the book. They didn't mention any type of rebellion. Obviously, all the gamers of the Oasis hated IOI and the Sixers. So there was already this rebellious atmosphere around, but it wasn't really like that in real life outside of the Oasis. So the movie being entertaining as a whole, I have no complaints. The pacing of it was really well done, just like the book. Never really a dull moment. A lot of action, always keeping your interest. So I have no complaints on that front. Some of the characters, had different roles, like I mentioned with Artemis, where instead of Wade Watts doing almost everything, some of those roles were passed on to Artemis, where she, took the shield down. Little things like that still had the same outcome. They didn't change the outcome of the movie at all. And, I didn't really have a problem with that. So overall, I would recommend the book more than the movie, but the movie is just as good in my opinion. I'm glad that the changes that they did make were still acceptable, at least in my eyes. They didn't change the outcome of the movie at all. I really have no problems. I can't wait for Ready Player 2. Hopefully they make a movie out of that one too, if it's good. So keep an eye out for my Ready Player 2 review. If I had to score the movie, I would probably give it a 4 out of 5, whereas I gave the book a 5 out of 5 because I prefer the book more. But if you haven't seen Ready Player 1 movie yet, I would definitely recommend that you check that one out. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See you later.